This week on Maker Update, Donald and I talk over all of our favorite projects, tips, and tools from 2024.
All right, hey, I'm Donald Bell, and welcome back to another Maker Update. This is a very special Maker Update. Every year, Tyler and I pick a handful of projects from the year that we just want to go look back on and talk about with each other. So this is kind of a best of, but it's really just Tyler and I's favorite picks of the year. In no particular order.
Yeah, and that's the important part, is that these aren't in any particular order. It's really just that as we're looking over the projects we highlighted over the course of the year, these are the ones that we remember the fondest and wanted to take a little bit more time to talk about because we thought they were really special for one reason or another.
Yeah, all right. So let's get started with what are some of our favorite projects of the year. Tyler, let's start us off with the Modular Macro. Tell me about Modular Macro.
This is Modular Macro Keyboard, and this is by a maker that we've covered a number of his projects, and I'm going to do my best with the pronunciation of his name. It is Salim Benbouziyane, I think. Salim Benbouziyane. I'm going to go with that. Anyways, he has carved out a niche for himself as a maker of making a lot of like custom interface devices for like his computer. I mean, I think another one of his projects was like a 3D space mouse, but this one is like a modular macro keyboard input interface with a bunch of different components that he can add on to them. So I think the base unit is like a 16 key macro pad kind of thing, but he can snap on additional modules with like big knobs, like rotary encoders. Some of them are like vertical sliding potentiometers, like a mixer slider. And all of these can be programmed into work as interfaces for various pieces of software. So if you can imagine like using them to adjust sliders in Photoshop or Illustrator or Premiere or any other numbers of photo editing or video editing applications, or probably even CAD stuff as well. And the other thing and so these all snap on together magnetically, and they manage their data connection over through pogo pins. And the other thing that really stuck out with this project to me and really make a lot of his projects remarkable is that he just produces them with a professional level look of fit and finish. Like everything is, a lot of them are 3D printed, but he takes all the time to sand and polish and paint them. So they have a really professional looking finish, and they're gorgeous objects that if you weren't seeing this as part of a maker video, you could easily be convinced that this is a commercial product, but it isn't. It's something he made in his own workshop, and he also shares all the stuff so that you can make your own too.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I noticed most about this project is that it's not that it's the first time we've seen something like this. It's just that to see it at this level of polish and thoughtfulness of the design and engineering, and that kind of the modularity of the magnetic snap together pogo pin connections for just being able to mix and match exactly what little flavor of modules you want, and just how nice it looks. It really looks like it's like a high-end prototype for a Kickstarter version of this thing, right? So that's one of those projects that just really inspire you to go an extra step in making it look flawless.
So tell us about the Carpentopod.
I need not tell you about the Carpentopod, Tyler. I think we all know about the Carpentopod. This is one of the most delightful projects I saw this year. I'm a fan of Theo Janssen's Strand Beast, and we've seen different versions of them: motorized, mechanical, small scale, large scale, over the years. But I've never seen it built into a beautiful piece of furniture like this before, in a way that's a little creepy. In the sense that it seems like this enchanted legged coffee table that goes around your apartment, but it's also just so well done, and it was exciting for a number of reasons. One, it's rare to see any kind of Strand Beast like project done as like a woodworking project like this. So he's using laminated bamboo as the medium. it's like a nicer looking than plywood, but still kind of resistant to the swelling and shifting that wood would often have with using it as a mechanical element. And it's motorized and it's remote controlled, and it looks great as a woodworking project. It is amazing as an engineering project, but the real extra little sweet spice on this project is that he spent some time throwing the existing Theo Janssen Strand-Beast mechanism into a machine learning program to see if he could optimize it even further for his particular application. And in this sense, it's a smaller scale, and he was really trying to optimize for how to keep it level as a moving table. And you had brought this up before. As a moving table, you really want to keep it as level as possible, and you can see it in the video that he's got a beverage on there moving across the room on this thing, and it doesn't wobble or topple. And so the fact that he was able to innovate this existing design and share the new mechanics of it and it's with the community is really, I think, helpful in general for people who want to take on a project like this. They have another option now in the whole Strand-Beast universe.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me about this is that because he opted to make it out of wood, and it's obviously a very technical project, but you can't see any of the technology it's all hidden inside of it. Mm-hmm. And the result of that is that because it's all made out of wood, and when you start seeing it moving around, it has this look that immediately evokes something like either steampunk or like a fantasy D&D table that like magically comes to life and walks around the room. And I think in one case he has it like nestled in a little corner of his living room, and then it just walks out of there and then, comes over to the couch to bring him a beverage or, a meal or whatever is happens to be on the table. And it has this completely wild look to it.
Yeah. And definitely one I would purchase in an instant if there was I don't know if I had the budget for it, I would purchase in an instant, because it's just like, I need, even though my wife might complain about the enchanted Strand-Beast coffee table, I think I'd find a place for it in my home just to have it. Speaking of which, luxury items, let's talk about this motorcycle project.
So I think it's easy to say that there's probably no more famous motorcycle, at least in animation, than Kaneda's motorcycle from Akira. People recognize it even if they aren't that familiar with the film. And this is a project that people have tried to replicate and make a real-life version of time and time again. And so this is one of those. But there's a lot of things that make this really special. One of the things that's really remarkable about the design of the motorcycle is that it's a very sort of low-slung riding position with a really long wheelbase. And people normally try to replicate that by having a really long set of forks for the front wheel. You get a little bit nerdy into motorcycle stuff here, and the result of that kind of design is that it ends up basically working like one of those extended custom choppers. And that just means that the handling of the front wheel is just going to be terrible, which is not really appropriate for what this supposedly high-performance motorcycle. And what Ota Kobo did when he was designing this he instead went with a really unconventional steering geometry where it's the wheel is on like a front swing arm, and then it operates via this like hub center steering design with a single-sided mounted wheel. And what that does is that it preserves the physical geometry of the motorcycle without sacrificing the handling by using a more conventional steering mechanism. The rest of the design is no slouch either. I mean, he's making it all out of a custom welded frame, and all of the bodywork is fitted and welded sheet metal that then he's ground down to hide all the welding marks and then painted it. And because it's all folded sheet metal, it doesn't match the original design 1-to-1. It's a bit more angular. So it's very much a design that he's put his own handprints on. But it's also immediately recognizable too. Towards the end of the video, you see him riding it around the streets of Japan, and it looks so cool seeing it riding around with other motorcycles and scooters. And of course, everybody's really excited to see something like that live and breathe and ride around.
Yeah, it is exceptional. I don't typically swoon for motorcycle stuff too much. It's just not my thing, but when I watch this video, I'm like, wow, that just as a metal working and engineering project, it's incredible. And it is also one of those kind of projects that's just such a great passion project homage to the film too, right? So it's like it's exciting on a number of levels.
Definitely.
All right. Let's see, where else are we going with this? We're talking about the chess pawn. So this is the recently published 3D printed pawn design by Works by Design, where a purely mechanical design that transforms a chess pawn into a queen when it reaches the back of the board. When you're promoting your pawn to a queen, instead of swapping out pieces, there's this fantasy of being able to just have that pawn transform, and to see it actually made possible in this design is thrilling. And it was also one of these projects where, just as a fan of projects, as someone who sees a lot of projects come through and how audiences react to them, this was one of those projects that was thrilling to see as a breakout project that went really kind of beyond the typical maker 3D printing engineering kind of realm, and spun out just for people who are fans of chess, just for the wow factor of seeing it transform. This video got a lot of views, and the channel got a lot of fans for it.
This is one of those things that, if you told me about it, before I saw the video for it, I would have just said, that's not possible. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Because, those are two different pieces that have a completely different height profile and a different shape and visual profile. And it just doesn't seem like there's enough space within the pawn to have it become the queen.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem possible. And that's why you need to see the video, because he breaks down all the engineering he put into it. And I think that the other really impressive thing about this is that we say this all the time of like being impressed with how far 3D printing is coming and has come. And that's the other really impressive thing about this, is that this is all made of 3D printed parts, and you need to have all these parts work and fit together with almost like a watchmaker's level of precision. And the fact that all these parts came from a commercial or hobbyist printer and work in this beautiful mechanical way is just so impressive to me.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about this boat.
Right. So we always appreciate the videos created by a maker known as Xiao Feng. And she does a lot of really fantastic projects of like cosplay pieces or art pieces. And the videos that she produces themselves about these processes and these projects are works in and of themselves, because she has her own pacing and style to creating them, and the way she includes sound from nature and the work that she's doing. Her videos are unlike anybody else's. But then in this video she's creating this tiny but life-size toy boat, and this is and it's powered by a candle. And originally I thought, okay, well this is just going to be a visual thing, and there's a motor hidden in it somewhere. And that's not the case here. And this is where I learned about, this is like an upscaled version of an actual toy called a pop boat. And the way these work is that, it's a metal boat, and there's a little metal disc that's sealed and that disc is filled with partially with water and with air, and it's connected to 2 tubes that then go out the back of the boat. What you do is you put a little tea light, votive candle underneath it, and that heats up the water inside, and then it creates this sort of oscillation pulse as the water heats up and then cools and heats up and then cools, and that produces this sort of oscillation wave of pressure out of those 2 tubes going out of the back of the boat. And you can do this and watch it, scoot around a bucket or a bathtub or a small tub of water, and it's really cool to see. And this is doing the exact same thing on a human-sized scale. Now, it's worth noting that the pressure coming out of this doesn't scale terribly well, so it is pretty slow to move around. But the fact that it actually works when scaled up to that size is really impressive. And it was also cool to me because I'd never heard of or seen this style of toy boat before. Mm-hmm. And so learning about them and learning how they work just made this a really fun and exciting journey as a viewer.
And also, this is a great video. I'm realizing so many of these projects are like transportation devices. I don't know if you could ride on the Carpentopod, but I like to imagine that you could. But we got the Carpentopod, the motorcycle, we've got the boat, and now we've got the NeoPixel party bike by Natasha at TechnoChic. This was another really fun one to watch take shape, and it's a great video, a great project that's really approachable for beginners who are excited about a kind of idea that anyone would be excited about, which is having like a really cool LED illuminated bike that you could ride around at night, and it's not only kind of, I would think, helps a little bit with visibility and safety, but also it's just like a total treat to see ride down the street. And the cool thing, we've seen a few different LED kind of bike projects like this before, but there's some real innovative techniques here for this particular bike. The one I really liked, the facet of this particular bike project I really enjoyed, is that she's using microbits, I think a number of them, right? There's one that controls the main lights across the body of the bike, and then I think there's one for each wheel. And through the transmitter and receivers that are built into the microbit, she's able to synchronize the animation across the different LEDs. So you don't just get kind of haphazard blinking and animations across the bike and different ones, out of sync on the wheels. The whole thing wirelessly communicates and synchronizes with itself, so you get a really nice total animation, kind of seamless animation across the bike, which is hard to do, and hard to do in a way that others could easily replicate. And I think that's the real win for this project, is that by using the microbits, you also get access to a really beginner-friendly way to interact with the code through like the make code system. And so you can take what Natasha's done here and tweak it to your own purposes. And
So the thing that really impressed me about this project is that the bike itself is really impressive, but it's just sort of like the end goal of this other thing she's created, which is like if the only thing you know about colored addressable LEDs is you want to make a project with them, but you don't know anything else, mm-hmm. Natasha has created an entire series that takes you from there to being able to build this NeoPixel party bike.
Yeah.
And because she's using super accessible stuff like the microbit and make code, you still need to get into details like power management and soldering and stuff like that, but she takes you through every step of the way. And I think it's one of the most comprehensive places to learn about addressable LED lighting anywhere on the internet. So that alone is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, it's not just a project. This also falls into the tips category, right?
Yeah, if you want to guide somebody to, who wants to make something like this or a costume or whatever, just send them to Natasha and she'll get them there the rest of the way there.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about another vehicle, smaller scale, this flying RC plane FPV project.
So this is not a vehicle that will take you anywhere, but it'll take you somewhere. So this is a sort of an augment to RC first-person view RC plane flying, because people who are doing that are already used to, they have the controller in the controller transmitter in their hands. They're wearing FPV goggles so they see what the plane is seeing. And this builds that out one better, because he's taking the data from the IMU that's on the plane and sending that back down to the base station. And then those signals are interpreted by a microcontroller. I believe it's like an Arduino Mega. And that's controlling motors for this giant chair that you're sitting in. And then it will pivot and actuate and roll to basically simulate whatever the plane is doing. And so you get this virtual experience of feeling like you are actually in the RC plane that you're flying, even though you're still on the ground. And it's such and he ended up showcasing it at this big convention for RC plane enthusiasts. And so everybody got to take a turn with it, flying the plane virtually. And there it was an incredible hit. I think in the process, he also created a simulator for it, so people could experience the chair, flying the chair and experiencing the mechanics of it a few times without actually worrying about like crashing the RC plane, because they're overwhelmed by the sensory experience. And it was a really cool and really impressive project to see come together.
Yeah. I don't think we got the maker's name in here. This is Michael Rechtin.
Yes, Michael Rechtin.
From his YouTube channel.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I love this idea. I also love that it's like the chair itself. You see so many kind of VR projects where there's like, gadgets for like simulated walking or whatever it is inside, but he's got the chair outside, so you can feel the breeze, you can hear the birds. Like it's like this outdoors experience that I think matches up with this particular with RC plane flying. As well, so it's fun to watch, and it would be, I imagine, a fun ride to take.
But not as fun as a Kawaii useless robot.
Yes, the Kawaii useless robot was a real treat. This is by Toby Chui, and it's an Instructables project that links out to a video and a full bill of materials, 3D print files, code, everything you'd need to replicate this, although it's not an easy project. But man, it is a cute project. And I think most people, and when they begin into electronics and making, they've probably come across kits where you can make a useless box, right? It's a pretty standard like kit offered as a beginner electronics project. And the concept is you flip a switch, it activates the servo that comes out and turns the switch off. It's kind of a gag that the thing you made is a box that turns itself off. This, though, takes it up to the comedic extreme, where every time you hit the switch, you get a little face on the front of the box that kind of animates and is annoyed by you flipping the switch. And then every consecutive action of the servo has a different kind of timing and effect. You really get a sense that you're annoying this little box creature by flipping the switch. And not only does it kind of escalate the annoyance of the box through the little cute face animations on the front, and through which you can kind of tell the different kind of animations of the servo to turn the switch off. But then towards the end, its wheels activate, and you realize that this thing can turn left and right and evade your switch pushing. And it's a great project that crosses into animatronics, it crosses into storytelling and character design, it crosses into Imagineering and that aspect of making, and it's an adorable project to watch, and another little thing that I wish I could just kind of reach out through the screen and show off to my family.
Yeah, as makers, I think most of us, I know I certainly don't, like, one of the things I'm not really thinking of is what sort of emotion is the project that I'm building going to create in somebody. And it's just so, maybe like satisfaction or like okay, that was satisfying to use, but never things like, is this going to make the person who's using it happy or make them laugh, or, so adding the concept of emotion as an additional dimension in the design of your project is something that I hadn't really considered before, and something that I think is a huge unexplored potential in other sorts of projects. And
interaction design, like a facet of interaction design that is like personality, whimsy, other kinds of things other than just like, you press the button, what happens. It's like, could there be more to that? And again, not probably applicable to every experience, but for something silly like this or something like toy design, it really is an interesting facet to explore when it comes to interaction design.
Definitely.
So, again, there's a full bill of material and PCB design and everything for this project, and you can find a link to that in the description, as well as all of these projects that we've covered here. You can find links to the different videos and associated guides down in the description, just like you can with every Maker update. I thought I'd mention it. All right. One more project that brought us a lot of joy this year, Tyler. Talk to us about the Party Sub projector screen.
All right, so this is one that I think I would have missed otherwise, but we got a tip about it from our friend Becky Stern. And this is the Party Sub projector screen by Aunt Dena. And it basically is what I said it is. She bought a projector screen for her house, and she saw it, and she thought first, well, it's great to have it, but it looks kind of boring. And then she thought, I think this looks like one of those party subs, the big, like 6 foot long sandwich you might buy for a party and cut it up into lots of different segments so everybody can have a piece of the same sandwich and, feed a whole group of people. And so she created a sort of wrapping for this thing. So it still works as a projector screen. And she made this out of pool noodles and out of felt and other like relatively inexpensive scrap materials. And, I think we all have felt at one point or another when looking at a project and thinking, well, I don't have $500 in hardwoods to build that table or whatever, or, $600 worth of, extensive motors. We've all felt that in a way, but you're not going to feel that way looking at this project. But okay. Seeing the way that
I've got a budget for pool noodles and felt, I can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, seeing the way she transformed these really humble materials into something that looks exactly like a giant sandwich is just incredible to watch. And the other part of this is, speaking of projects that evoke emotion, there's a really interesting and personal story to this, because the reason why she also wanted to create this sandwich is that, she began her maker journey when being with her mom worked at a Subway restaurant, and, she would be sitting there at a table crafting stuff out of like basically office supplies that her mother brought for her. And, she would make all kinds of interesting little craft projects just to keep herself busy while her mother was working. And so this is a tribute to that, and also just a way to bring a little bit more joy to an otherwise mundane part of your house, just to make it more fun. And I think that's a really important thing to do, that we can all do as creative people, is just take something that we experience or use every day and make it a little bit better. Make it, put our handprints on it.
It really, it is a fun and delightful video, and she is a great personality to be following on YouTube, because everything she's doing is just infused with this joy. And the thing I love about this project is I realize now it kind of hits on my like child of the 80s, like watching Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of I don't know, memory. Just the idea of like living in a place where it's every little item is so completely personalized and infused with a playfulness. The idea that you could do this with a projector screen or whatever is around your home and just make it a little brighter, a little more personal, is a cool idea to see explored. And so this was a fun video for this year. Absolutely, I agree. And on that note, let's also talk about some tips.
All right, so this is a tip we got from another friend of the show, a friend of ours, Pete Prodoehl. And he's been spending a bunch of time this year creating small art prints on his tabletop printing press. This is a tabletop printing press created by a company called Provisional Press. They sell both kits to make the press itself. They also sell a laser cut design file, so you can bring your own materials and build your own. And this is so this is one where you have your printing plate on this tabletop platen, and then you run this heavy roller over the top of it, and that's how you create your print. And normally you would make your printing plates from like carved linoleum, so you get this kind of woodblock carving. But Pete has developed a process of being able to create his prints on his 3D printer. So he's able to make his designs in Inkscape, and then, so he can design digitally, and then he takes those and sends them through a process to extrude that design on a 3mm thick printed piece. And the really critical part of this is that he also uses the ironing feature, which is common in a lot of 3D printing slicers, where it runs the hot nozzle back over the top of the finished print to give it a really nice smooth top, which means that he's not going to get a lot of the typical top surface of a 3D print, that sort of scratchy lines transferred into the print. He gets a relatively smooth, even surface for the printing plate. And I just thought it was such a fun way to get a little bit more utility out of your printer, and also have modern cool technology be paired up with a really traditional sort of art printmaking process.
But the mix of kind of new technology with very analog, recognizably analog, old school woodblock printing results, but also this way that I think for like students, let's say, who might have a makerspace at their school, or that they might be curious about 3D printing, but maybe less of an engineering mindset and more of like a creative or artistic mindset. It gives them a way to play around with, or kind of a way into 3D printing that they would not have had otherwise. And I think that's a cool way to get more artistically minded people looking at 3D printing as a tool that they can use.
And so tell us about Erin St. Blaine's WLED.
All right. One of the series of tips and projects I really enjoyed seeing this year was the number of WLED tutorials and projects from Erin St. Blaine on the Adafruit Learning Center. If you're not familiar with WLED software, it's a really dead simple way to get up and running with LED strip and animations, and fiddling around with making custom LED strip projects or LED matrix projects, really. Erin showed us how to do LED signage, LED wearables, from fashion things like coats and shoelaces to LED umbrellas and LED like landscaping lights. Just so many great, interesting projects, and each one of those projects explored some other facet of the WLED software that you might easily overlook, from doing remote control to synchronizing animations between two microcontrollers. It's a really great resource, and anyone who's starting in and interested in the WLED software specifically for controlling NeoPixels should really give these guides a look.
All right, and that's pretty much everything that's on our list that we wanted to talk about for our sort of end of the year wrap up. Is there anything else we have for everyone, Donald?
No, I just really appreciate everyone who tuned in this year, anyone who liked or commented or shared our videos. I encourage you, I'm sure everyone here has their own opinions. If you're a fan of this show, you've probably got your own favorite projects of the year that maybe didn't get mentioned here. So please mention them in the comments. Let's talk about them. Let's take this video in the comment section as an opportunity to reminisce about some of our favorite projects of the year. Big thanks, of course, to DigiKey for keeping this show running. And thanks to everyone watching. And we'll see you in the new year.
Yeah, and also another thank you to all the incredible makers making all the great projects that give us a reason to do this show and talk about their projects.
Absolutely.
So couldn't do it without you either.